Hi, and welcome back to Heimler's History Economics Edition. In the last video, I taught you about one of the fundamental principles of economics, namely demand. And in this video, I'm going to teach you about the other side of the coin, supply. So, let's get to it. So when we talked about demand, we talked about gummy bears. And in my opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And what we said last time is that the quantity demanded of gummy bears for the general population depends on the price of gummy bears. The more expensive they are, the less we are likely to demand them. And the less expensive they are, the more we are likely to demand them. And the same principle is true on the supply side, but in reverse. So let's get into the motivations of the people who make and supply gummy bears. You see, just as price affects our willingness to buy gummy bears, price also affects the producers of gummy bears' willingness to supply them. And the thing is, well, sounds like somebody's hungry for a graph. All right, it's graph time. Okay, here's the supply schedule, and it works the same way that the demand schedule did. Except in this case, it shows us how many gummy bears a producer is willing to sell at the given price points. And as you can imagine, we can graph that, and it would look like this. So what this schedule and this graph are telling us is that the higher the price, the more producers want to produce. And it's the same over here. The higher the price, the more they're going to bring to market. And that is what we call the law of supply. Okay, so a change in quantity supplied is only affected by price. If the price increases or decreases, that changes the quantity supplied. So for example, at 50 cents per pound, suppliers are going to want to supply 7 million pounds of gummy bears, represented by this point right here. And all the way up here at $2 per pound, they're going to want to supply 13 million pounds, represented by this point right here. So it's a change in price that moves us along this supply curve. So let me emphasize again, quantity supplied is only affected by a change in price, but a change in overall supply shifts the curve entirely. So look at this new supply schedule. Let's say that more producers decide to manufacture gummy bears. Oh, happy day. That means, all other things being equal, that there are more gummy bears available for purchase at every price than there was back here. In that case, the entire curve shifts to the right. And that indicates an increase in overall supply. So at 50 cents per pound, now they're going to produce 11 million pounds. We see that right here at this point. And at $2 per pound, they're going to want to supply more overall. So they're going to produce, here at this point, 17 million pounds of gummy bears. So just like the demand curve, the supply curve can shift both ways. An increase in supply shifts the curve to the right, and a decrease in price shifts the curve to the left. Now, economists tell us that there are 5 factors that can shift the supply curve to the right or to the left. The first is changes in input prices. The second is changes in the prices of related goods. The third is changes in technology. The fourth is changes in expectations. And fifth are changes in the number of producers. Okay, first, the supply curve will shift if there is a change in input prices. So in order to make a gummy bear, those producers need other things to make those gummy bears out of, and those other things are called inputs. One of the inputs in gummy bears is gelatin, which when being defined is the protein that is derived from the boiling of cow bones, skins, and ligaments. Wow. That really makes a guy second guess eating gummy bears. Wouldn't that be hilarious if I was like that? So if the price of gelatin rises, that means producers are probably going to buy less of it, which means they will produce less gummy bears, and that will shift the supply curve to the left. And the opposite is true as well. If the price of an input decreases, then producers are probably going to buy more of it, and they're probably going to make more of whatever they're making, and then put more of that stuff into the market, and that is a rightward shift of the supply curve. The second factor that will shift the supply curve is a change in the prices of related goods and services. Now, what is a related good or service? Let's look at Toyota, for example. They produce both trucks and SUVs. So the amount of each that they produce depends on how the other is selling. If trucks are selling 2 to 1, then they're going to produce more trucks and less SUVs. So trucks and SUVs are what we would call substitutes in production. Because in this case, Toyota basically uses the same materials to produce the trucks and the SUVs, and so they need to decide which one they're going to produce more of. But there are also complements in production. And that means that product A is the consequence of producing product B. For example, the byproduct of making skim milk is the cream that they have to skim off the top. So the higher the price that producers are getting for skim milk, that means they're also going to be making more cream as well. Third, the supply curve can shift because of a change in technology. So if producers develop a new technology that helps them make their product cheaper, they are likely to make more of that product and offer it to the market. And fourth, the supply curve will shift because of changes in expectations. If the producer knows that there are times when their good or service will fetch a higher price, then they're likely to supply less now and more at that time. And you can see this with gasoline. Public demand for gasoline spikes during the summer, and so gas manufacturers hold on to a lot of excess supply of gas during the winter and spring months, and then wait till summer to bring it to market. And fifthly, the supply curve can shift because of a change in the number of producers. And this is pretty self-explanatory. If there are more companies making gummy bears, then that means there are more gummy bears to be had in the world. Okay, I've got an easy way for you to remember those 5 factors of supply change. There's changes in technology, changes in related goods and services, changes in input prices, changes in producers, changes in expectations. You've got tripe. That's the same word we use for demand. Okay, how can we rearrange that? How about rice tea? Got it? Okay. Good. Okay, thanks for stopping by the channel. If you want me to supply more videos, then increase the demand by hitting that subscribe button below. And if you feel like watching this video increase the size of your mind grapes, then hit that like button. And as you can see, YouTube has supplied over here more related goods and services from Heimler's history. And if you liked this one, they think you're gonna like that one too. I'll see you next time.